Compliance is now called to order. Everyone should please take a moment to mute their cell phones. CUNY TV is transmitting the public sessions of the meeting live at www.cuny.edu/livestream and the CUNY Board of Trustees website. To discuss several items on today's agenda, I now move that this meeting convene an executive session pursuant to Article 7, Section 105C and 105F of the Public Officers Law. I make a motion to move into executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. The board will now reconvene. Oh, sorry. That's it. We're in executive session. So if you can please clear out for a little bit. We'll be back. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we're now back in public session. We will now take up the following items for approval. Action item 2A is the approval of the minutes of the June 26, 2023 meeting. I move the approval of action item 2A. Do I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? That action item is approved. I'd now like to address action item 2B, the policy calendar. It's a action item, policy item number 2.B.1 is a resolution to approve the fiscal year 2023 audited financial statements. The university is required to obtain an audit of its consolidated financial statements on an annual basis. The university's external auditor, Grant Thornton LLC, has independently audited these financial statements for fiscal year 23 and has given the university a clean or unmodified opinion. The university is seeking the Board of Trustees approval for the university's fiscal year 23 audited financial statements. I will now introduce Claire Eston, partner at Grant Thornton LLP, who will provide a brief overview of the financial statement audit process and results. Claire?
Thank you, Chair Kim, and thank you for having us today. Knowing that you've had the material in advance, our intention is to be fairly brief and address questions to the extent you have them. At a high level, we are substantially complete with our audit. In the materials, there was a page that recognized that there are several open items remaining. We expect to complete those open items over the course of the next few days to be able to issue an unqualified opinion on the financial statements of the university as of June 30, 2023. Our audit was executed in accordance with our plan. The materials go through the areas of focus that were shared with the committee back when we presented our plan. Just a couple of highlights, I'll say. We did audit the adoption of a new accounting pronouncement this year, which is related to accounting for subscription-based IT arrangements, otherwise known as CBIDAs or GASB 96. So that was essentially the accounting for IT arrangements where there's a multi-year commitment by the university. The cost of those was capitalized on the balance sheet, essentially, with an offsetting liability or obligation for the future payment stream, the multi-year future payment stream. Bless you, Dennis. And then, other than that, I'll just call out on page 7, we did have one audit adjustment that was identified. And actually, it was an adjustment that management identified in their close process related to accounting for the Perkins Loan Program, which is a federal student financial aid program. And management identified an adjustment that they cleaned up this year, but really the $7.6 million is an amount that's being recorded in your P&L this year, but really relates to a prior year. So this is just I'll call it a quality of earnings adjustment to say it shouldn't be recorded in this year's P&L. It should be recorded in the previous year's P&L. But this adjustment is not material to the financial statements. It's just above the threshold that we use to track audit adjustments, but it doesn't impact our audit opinion. Again, we'll be issuing a clean opinion on the financial statements. And this was also, again, management identified. We're just recognizing it needs to be in the prior year. Other than that, there are no internal control matters to report, no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control that need to be reported, no disagreements with management, and none of the other, I'll call it laundry list of items that would be required to be communicated that are listed on pages 8 and 9 of the document. Moving on very quickly to just give an update on the uniform guidance audit. We are, and that's on page 11, we are in the very final stages of that audit as well. We executed our audit in accordance with our plan, which was communicated to this committee back in the spring, where we identified 2 major programs, the Student Financial Aid Cluster and then the Higher Education Emergency Relief Funds. This is expected to be the last year that we'll have to audit that program. And as of today, we're going through final reviews, but we don't have any exceptions with either of those major programs, and we hope to issue that report. I guess we'll be meeting with the audit committee again at the next meeting to go through the formal results of that audit. Are there any questions on the audit process of the results?
Committee members, anybody? Questions? I think we're good.
If not, if we have just 2
Yes,
minutes
sure.
for
We
Dennis
have
to
2
share
minutes.
just an industry update, that
Okay.
would be great.
Sure, 2 minutes, I
Or
guess.
5.
Or whatever time you need,
Sorry.
until I cut you off.
No, please, tell me when. So no, I just want to spend a moment, obviously, I know I've met with this committee in the past, and certainly been my pleasure, certainly our pleasure to serve. CUNY, I'm our national industry leader for our higher education practice, and I just wanted to thematically speak about some of the challenges, yet opportunities, and what I'm hearing from meeting with boards and finance and audit committees of the institutions that our practice serves. And so first, there's a little bit of headwinds here, and I have to be honest that most institutions are certainly contending with these strains, and some of them we've actually spoke about. You talked about labor shortages, and that's certainly one of them that is of great import to many institutions trying to get the right talent in place to execute on so many imperatives. Second is, and you just mentioned this as well, actually, the Higher Education Emergency Relief Funds. So much money had been surged to higher education during the period of COVID. Billions of dollars, in fact, $150+ billion of monies, and that certainly helped many institutions weather the challenges, the pernicious impacts of the COVID. But as that money starts to go away, it's going to put some additional strains on institutions to kind of make sure that they scale their operations to adapt to the changing economics of their situations. Enrollment challenges, and we see this does abound across many types of institutions, not just privates, not just publics. All institutions are dealing with the challenges of enrollment. We know that we're rapidly approaching some enrollment cliffs, and we're not yet sure exactly what impacts that will have on institutions. That leads me to increasing costs, and it's not just salary costs, it's all operating costs, and that again is continuing to strain operating budgets. How do you deal with that? And I'll talk about some of the things that are top of mind of fiduciaries and fiscal leaders here in a moment. And then the last thing that I want to mention, and while this is not precisely germane to CUNY, but once we include the foundation, it is. And that is contributions. And so many institutions actually benefited quite well during the period of COVID in terms of philanthropy from donors. And I think the industry as a whole did a really good job of punctuating the needs that they had, which led people to really give at historic highs. And while the amount of philanthropy towards not-for-profits and higher educations is actually currently quite strong, I think you need to pull back or pull out some of those transformative gifts. And once you do that, we find that actually the number of donors is actually dropping, and the per donor contribution is similarly dropping as well. And so as we model that on the go, that could be certainly a headwind of concern for institutions. So what are institutions doing? First, spending a lot more time being strategic planning. And so not just operational strategic planning, but generative thinking. Where do we want to take the institution? What do we want to do that's going to be important? How do we want to be attractive to prospective as well as matriculating students? In alignment with strategic planning, much more time and energy and resource planning around modeling and forecasting and scenario planning. Scenario planning is key. Creating an assumption bank and then toggling with those assumptions on a regular basis to react to the changing environmental forces that we may be experiencing. Audit committees, finance committees, boards in general, and management team are very much focused on enterprise risk management. No matter where any institution is on enterprise risk management, spending much more time to inventory those risks to ensure that they have a fulsome register of the opportunities and challenges that may be confronting an organization. And the number one risk on those registers is cybersecurity. What are we doing? What are our appliances? What are our defenses, safeguards? How are we testing and poking at our perimeter to ensure that it's going to stand up against a potential attack? And assuming that maybe it won't, how do we respond quickly? What steps do we take in what order to react? Two more items here of note: master campus planning, certainly top of mind of institutions positioning their campuses to be most strategic, to align with the changing expectations of students. And then finally here, adding back budget. I talked a lot about increasing costs, but institutions are saying, look, we can't compromise on what makes us unique. What makes us demonstratively different than our peers, our aspirant organizations, the other institutions that are vying for our students? Let's make sure we're redoubling our efforts and investment in those spaces to build our brand and to burnish our own brand. So that's a little bit about what's happening. I've gone on at times for hours about this stuff, but that's just a little bit of a background thematically about what we're seeing. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Thank you. Anybody have any questions, comments?
Just very realistic
Very
about
realistic.
what the situation is,
Yes.
not only,
Yes, the headwinds.
especially here with CUNY, because we have a great many challenges as a public institution,
Understood.
and the winds are not blowing in the right direction right now.
Hopefully they'll change.
I see you mentioned philanthropic, Mr. Chair, sorry. Philanthropic gifting quite a bit. Was there any monetization of our campuses? We've got a demographic that's an advertiser's dream. Is there any way to open up those possibilities for advertising and what have you?
Yeah, I don't have the answer to that, but I know that is something why I brought up master campus planning as a potential area of focus and opportunity. Organizations are being introspective, saying, is this an opportunity that we want to avail ourselves at to potentially use our capital in a more strategic way? So the answer to it is yes. It's just a matter of how much time and resource and energy and thought can be done to really accomplish that objective and monetize it.
Yes.
Are you seeing patterns with respect to state government funding and, to the extent that it's relevant, local government funding for higher education? I think in our situation, we a chunk of our problem is like we have labor agreements that don't get funded.
Right.
And so we're supposed to eat them. And I just don't, are you seeing a resistance coming from state governments? Or are they, are we unique?
I don't know if you have a view on that.
Yeah, I'll say that I think it depends on the state. Up here in the Northeast/New England, even I work with public universities in Connecticut, and they were just talking about adding more to the state appropriations to fund more of the fringe costs, actually, because they're getting excessively high. Connecticut is a very high fringe rate for their state employees. And then down in other states where there's huge growth of the population, where, Texas, Florida, et cetera, I think the states are doubling down on their state appropriations to education because of the growth in enrollment. But then in other states, again, up here where we're experiencing the demographic cliff a little bit more acutely, state appropriations are going down. They're saying to these schools, you don't need 15 community colleges in our state, you only need 10. So it's a little bit of the have and have-nots. Some states are... There's different positions that I see being taken.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. That was actually very helpful.
Thank you for allowing us to have some of that time.
No, of course. Oh, I think it was really informative. I'd like to move for the approval of policy item 2B1. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? That item is approved. Item 2B2 is a resolution to approve the internal audit plan for fiscal year '24. The university is seeking the Board of Trustees approval of this plan. Associate Vice Chancellor for Audit Gordon Taylor and University Executive Director of Audit Shaini Matthew are available to respond to any inquiries on the plan. Anybody have any questions? You've seen the plan. All right, if no one has questions, then I now move for the approval of policy item 2B2. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Just a couple quick things. As we look forward, I think the need to increase staff in audit is an important one. There are shortages there now, but there are also, to be able to do the job, we firmly believe that there need to be additions in that area, as well as, I would also say, that the addition of software that would be helpful. And the software will allow, in hearing some of the history that dates back 15 years, it's a little surprising, and I think it's an opportunity for the university to be able to do more, as they kind of say, with less. So we would suggest software as well as additions of personnel that would allow in audit and internal audit to do their job and do their job well.
Yes? Anybody?
No.
Oh, you just said good idea? Great. So I'll move for the approval of policy item 2B2. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion other than what we just talked about? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? That item is approved. Policy item 1B3, is this 2B3? Policy item 2B3 is a resolution to approve the continued reform of governance and administrative policies and practices to enhance transparency and accountability of the City University of New York. On June 26, 2023, the committee voted to lay this resolution on the table. Since this is our next regularly scheduled meeting, I'm making a motion to take this resolution from the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? That item is approved. Oh, now we need to actually go into the item, so now I'd like to move for the approval of item 2B3. Do I have a second? Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the approval of that item is now approved. With no more items on the agenda, I will move to adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.